The text from my son Logan came while I was sitting alone in my Charleston apartment. "Dad, you're not allowed at our hotel anymore. We only welcome high-class guests." Those words burned. I had poured decades into building Charleston Harbor Inns, every late-night decision, every risk after losing my wife, every choice made so my children could have something solid. And now Logan, my own flesh and blood, was slamming the door in my face, treating me like I didn't belong in the empire I created. I didn't text back. I didn't call to argue. I simply stared at the screen until the words blurred, then set the phone down. No anger in my voice, no tears, just quiet resolve. Because Logan had no clue what I still controlled. There were truths he had never been told. Truths that would flip this entire game. He thought he had shut me out for good. He was wrong. If you've ever been humiliated by the people you raised and sacrificed everything for, smash that like button. Right now, hit subscribe and stay till the end. Because what happens next will show you exactly how far one man will go when his own family draws the line. That message arrived on a rainy afternoon in Charleston, where I live alone since my wife passed. The words on the screen still sting every time I think about them, but to understand why I chose silence instead of argument, I need to go back a few years. When Logan turned 35, I decided it was time. I had built Charleston Harbor Inns from a single waterfront property into a chain of 7 upscale resorts along the South Carolina coast. Every brick, every loan repayment, every sleepless night negotiating with banks had been for my family. After my wife's illness took her, I focused even harder on leaving something lasting. But I also knew that handing over control too easily could spoil a person. So I transferred day-to-day management to Logan Title's office signature authority on most accounts. I told him it was his chance to prove himself as the next generation. What I never told him, or Alexis, or his wife Claire, was that I retained a controlling block of shares through a private holding company. Not out of distrust at first, but out of caution. I wanted to watch how he handled real responsibility, without the safety net of knowing Dad still held the strings. At the beginning, everything looked perfect. Logan expanded marketing, renovated lobbies, brought in celebrity chefs for the restaurants. Reviews glowed. Occupancy rates climbed. I received polished quarterly reports that showed steady profits. I visited occasionally, stayed in a guest suite under a different name, and watched from afar. Logan and Claire hosted lavish events. Alexis flew in for family gatherings. They all moved through the resorts like royalty. I was proud until the numbers started feeling off. Small things first. Maintenance budgets seemed consistently underspent, yet the properties looked flawless. I noticed line items for consulting fees that didn't match any vendors I remembered. Then came the personal touches. Logan driving a new Porsche Cayenne to site visits. Claire posting photos from Maldives getaways labeled Business Development Retreat. Uncle Benjamin, my older brother, who handled the books, suddenly wearing custom suits and Rolexes he couldn't afford on his salary. I didn't accuse anyone yet. Instead, I quietly hired an independent forensic accounting firm through my lawyer, Madison Clark. She had handled my estate planning for years. I trusted her discretion completely. The report arrived 6 months later in a plain envelope. Nearly $3 million siphoned from the maintenance and capital reserve funds over 2 years. Not outright theft in the dramatic sense, no fake invoices or ghost employees, but clever redirection. Funds earmarked for roof repairs, HVAC upgrades, and stormproofing were rerouted through shell consulting companies controlled by Benjamin. Those companies then paid for Logan's luxury car lease, Claire's designer wardrobe allowances, private jet charters for networking trips, and even down payments on a vacation home in Kiowa Island. The resort still looked perfect because Logan used short-term credit lines and deferred real maintenance to keep appearances up. The chain was profitable on paper, but the books were hollowed out. one major hurricane season away from serious trouble. I arranged a private meeting with Logan at my apartment. No confrontation in the office, no family dinner drama. Just the two of us, coffee on the table, the report in front of him. "Son," I said quietly, "this isn't sustainable. The reserves are depleted. We need to stop the bleeding, repay what's been taken, and get back to basics before the board or lenders notice." He stared at the pages for a long minute. Then he leaned back, crossed his arms, and gave me the look I had seen him use on difficult vendors. "Dad, you're looking at this like it's still the 90s. Creative cash flow management is how you stay competitive. These expenses keep the brand elite. Clients expect luxury they don't book with us because we have the cheapest roof sealant." I pointed to the figures. $3 million isn't cash flow. It's misuse of restricted funds. If the IRS or a lender audits, he cut me off. "You're being paranoid. Uncle Ben knows what he's doing. And honestly, you've been out of the game too long. You don't understand modern hospitality. You're jealous because I've taken it further than you ever did." The word jealous landed like a slap. I had never asked for credit, never demanded gratitude. I just wanted the business to last longer than one generation. Alexis was on speakerphone that day. She had joined the call from Atlanta, and she stayed silent the entire time. Claire, sitting next to Logan, looked down at her phone and didn't say a word either. The room felt smaller than it ever had. I didn't raise my voice. I closed the folder and said, "Think about what you're choosing." A week later, the text arrived. I read it twice. Then I placed the phone face down on the table. No reply. No angry call. Just the quiet click of realization. Words wouldn't change anything anymore. They had drawn their line. Now it was time for me to draw mine. I didn't waste time after that realization. The next morning, I called Madison Clark. She answered on the second ring, her voice calm as always. "Joshua, I've been waiting for your call." We met that same day in her office. I laid out the plan, used the controlling shares I still held quietly through the holding company, combine them with my liquid assets, and secure a bridge loan for the balance. Madison had already pulled the latest financials on the chain. On paper, Charleston Harbor Inns was thriving, high occupancy, glowing reviews, premium pricing. But the internal numbers told a different story. Deferred maintenance, inflated short-term revenue from one-time promotions, and reserves drained to support personal lifestyles. The debt load had grown too heavy. The board had no choice but to list the entire portfolio for a distressed sale. No public announcement, no fanfare, just a quiet process for qualified buyers who could close fast. I qualified. We moved quickly. Madison coordinated with the investment bank handling the transaction. I provided proof of funds from my personal accounts and the holding entity. Due diligence was expedited because I already knew the properties inside out. No surprises for me. The only surprise would be for them. 3 days later, we had verbal agreement. The sellers wanted cash and speed, no haggling over warranties, no long escrow. I signed the letter of intent electronically, while sitting in my apartment, the rain still tapping against the windows. Madison handled the wire transfers and final negotiations. By the end of the week, the deal was locked. The closing happened in a small conference room at the bank. No champagne, no handshakes with the old board. Just signatures, notary stamps, and a digital transfer of ownership records. When the last page was done, Madison slid the confirmation across the table. "You now own Charleston Harbor Inns, every resort, every asset, every protocol." I exhaled slowly. "Start the security update. Deactivate all existing access cards and codes system-wide. Send the standard notice routine upgrade for enhanced safety. No exceptions." She nodded. "The family is due at the Grand this weekend. Presidential suite as usual. Make sure the letters reach them before check-in." The notification went out that afternoon, email and certified mail, neutral language. Effective immediately, all prior access credentials are being replaced as part of a comprehensive security enhancement. New cards will be issued upon verification of current status and compliance with updated ownership policies. Attached was a one-page summary of the change in control. No names mentioned, no drama spelled out, just facts. I knew exactly what would happen. Logan always arrived early on Fridays, claiming the best parking spot. Claire would have her spa appointment booked. Alexis would be snapping photos for her social media. Benjamin would carry his briefcase full of important documents. They would pull up to the gate, scan their cards, expect the gate to lift, and nothing. I drove to the Grand that Friday evening, parking in the staff area. I used my new master key to enter through a side door and took the service elevator to the mezzanine. The lobby was busy, couples checking in bellhops, wheeling luggage, the soft sound of jazz from the bar. Everything looked flawless, just as I had designed it years ago. Saturday morning arrived clear and bright. I positioned myself on the mezzanine again, half hidden behind a column. The family SUV pulled up right on time. Logan stepped out, first keys in hand, already talking on his phone. Claire followed in a flowing sundress. Alexis had her camera ready. Benjamin closed the trunk and straightened his jacket. They approached the valet with the usual confidence, bags handed off. Then they walked to the main entrance, cards ready. The concierge scanned Logan's card. Red light. He tried again. Red. Same for the others. "I'm sorry, sir," the concierge said politely. "Your credentials are no longer active. We've had a full system reset." Logan's smile vanished. "Run it again. This is our suite." The concierge repeated the scan. Still red. He handed over the printed notification letter. Logan ripped it open. His eyes scanned the page. Then he read it again, slower. Alexis leaned in, her face paling. Claire's hand went to her mouth. Benjamin took the paper from Logan, adjusted his glasses, and read silently. The color drained from his face. Voices rose. Logan demanded the manager. The new manager, briefed by me, approached calmly. "Mr. Brown, the update is company-wide under new ownership, no exceptions. If you'd like to speak with the owner, they're available right now." Logan's jaw tightened. "Who is it?" The manager simply looked upward. I stepped forward to the railing. Their heads tilted back. Eyes met mine. Logan's phone slipped slightly in his grip. Alexis froze mid-breath. Claire's purse strap slid down her shoulder. Benjamin's briefcase hung limp at his side. I started down the grand staircase, each step deliberate, until I stood directly in front of them. The lobby noise faded as I descended each step, measured the marble echoing softly under my shoes. Guests turned their heads. Staff paused mid-motion. Logan was still arguing with the concierge voice, sharp, demanding a supervisor for the second time. Alexis had her arms crossed, phone in hand, like she was ready to record a complaint. Claire stood slightly behind, eyes darting between her husband and the letter. Benjamin gripped his briefcase tighter, knuckles white. I reached the bottom step and stopped a few feet away. The manager nodded once toward me without a word. Logan turned first. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. The color drained from his face in stages, first cheeks, then lips, then the skin around his eyes. He blinked hard, as if the light was playing tricks. The word came out small, almost a question, not the confident tone he used in boardrooms or on the phone with vendors, just raw confusion. Alexis looked up from her phone. Her thumb froze over the screen. Claire's purse slipped an inch down her arm. Benjamin exhaled sharply through his nose. "This has to be a mistake." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "No mistake," I said. "As of this morning, I own Charleston Harbor Inns, all 7 properties, all contracts, all access rights." Logan laughed, once a short, disbelieving sound. "You come on. You retired. You handed it over to me years ago. You don't even have the capital I retained controlling shares through the holding company. You never asked for the full paperwork. You assumed. His laugh died. The lobby felt smaller now. A few guests had stopped pretending not to watch. Alexis stepped forward half a step. Dad, this isn't funny. We have a reservation. The presidential suite is booked in our name. It was booked under the previous ownership structure, I replied. That changed today. Claire finally spoke, her voice thin. Joshua, we didn't know. I looked at her directly. You didn't ask. Benjamin cleared his throat. Let's take this somewhere private. There's obviously been a misunderstanding about the transfer. There's no misunderstanding. I cut in. The transfer is complete. The board accepted the offer. Funds wired. Titles recorded. You can verify with your own attorney if you want. Logan's hands clenched at his sides. You bought it. With what your savings? You've been living in that small apartment since Mom died. You told me you were done with the business. I told you I was stepping back, not out. Silence stretched. The concierge had stepped back. The manager stood ready if needed. I continued, voice level. As the new owner, I have the right to update policies, starting with security protocols. Your cards are deactivated because the old credentials are no longer valid. New ones require verification of current status and compliance. Logan's eyes narrowed. Compliance with what basic rules? Ethical conduct clauses, financial integrity requirements. Nothing complicated. Benjamin shifted his weight. You can't just lock us out of our own suite. We've been coming here for years. This is family. This is business, I said. And family doesn't get a free pass when the books are short $3 million. Logan flinched. Alexis inhaled sharply. Claire looked down at the floor. I let the number hang for a second. The reserves were meant for roofs, plumbing, storm barriers, not luxury cars and island getaways. You made choices. Now the property makes choices. Logan recovered enough to speak again. This is personal. You're punishing us because we didn't invite you to every meeting, because we modernized things you didn't understand. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I'm enforcing ownership rights. If you want access, you can apply like any other guest. Background check, updated agreements, payment of current rates. Alexis shook her head slowly. You're serious? Completely. Claire whispered. Joshua, please. We can talk this out. Family. I met her eyes. We tried talking. You were silent then. I'm silent now. Logan took a step closer, voice dropping. You think this makes you look strong, buying your way back in. We built this brand. You spent what I built, I said quietly. And now it belongs to me again. The words landed. No one spoke for a long beat. Benjamin tried one last time. We can resolve this. Let's sit down. I'll show you the ledgers I've seen. The ledgers, I said. That's why I'm here. Logan stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. The confidence he carried into every room was gone. In its place was something raw, shock, embarrassment, the slow realization that the ground had shifted under him. Alexis looked around at the watching guests, then back at me. Her phone stayed in her hand screen dark. Claire's eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. She just stood there small. I turned to the manager. Show them to temporary accommodations in the standard wing until they decide whether to comply with the new terms. The manager nodded. This way, please. They didn't move at first. Then Logan picked up one of the bags, his own, and followed, shoulders rigid. Alexis and Claire trailed behind. Benjamin came last, briefcase dragging. I watched them disappear down the corridor. No raised voices, no dramatic exit, just quiet, stunned footsteps. The lobby slowly returned to normal. Guests resumed conversations. Staff went back to work. I stayed where I was for another minute, feeling the weight of the chandelier above me, the same one I had chosen 30 years ago. Everything had reversed, and they knew it. After the quiet footsteps faded down the corridor, the manager returned to the lobby and gave me a single nod. I signaled Madison to proceed. We moved to the back office immediately. The door closed behind us, and she pulled up the property management system on her laptop. Reassignments first. Yes, the presidential suite was removed from availability within minutes. The system reassigned the family to a standard king room on the 4th floor, interior view, no balcony, basic furnishings. No notification needed. The change was automatic under new ownership authority. The nightly rate jumped 5-fold for that category, with weekly billing required in advance. I approved the update. No grace period. Madison switched to the Resident Agreements tab. Ethical Conduct. Clause Activation. Effective now. The clause was straightforward. Any financial irregularity, embezzlement, misrepresentation of funds, tax discrepancies, triggered immediate review and possible eviction. I instructed her to flag all prior VIP accounts for mandatory background checks, credit history, public records, IRS filings. The family's old status was suspended pending completion, special access revoked in one sweep, spa comps, canceled executive lounge entry, denied private beach section, key cards, deactivated in-room dining credits, zeroed. The manager relayed the changes to the front desk. When the family inquired about breakfast the next morning, they were handed a standard menu and the new price list. Logan paid the first week's bill in cash at the desk. No questions. No eye contact. The transaction was logged. I turned to the evidence package next. The forensic audit report, wire transfer logs. Shell company registrations all organized in a secure folder. Madison attached a brief cover note, suspected wire fraud and tax evasion involving restricted resort funds. I sent it to the FBI field office in Columbia via encrypted email. The auto reply came within the hour, receipt acknowledged. Case assigned for preliminary review. No further action at this time. No arrests. No raids. Just the beginning of a process that could take months. That was enough. The conversion of the presidential suite started the following day. I walked the space with the design coordinator. The plush velvet chairs were removed, replaced with sturdy armchairs and recliners. Medical grab bars installed in the bathroom. The terrace received simple seating and a small herb garden. The name changed officially to the Brown Family Legacy Wing. Purpose: complimentary stays for qualifying low-income seniors and veterans. First residents: a retired Army sergeant from Somerville and his wife, plus 2 elderly women from a local assisted living center who hadn't seen the ocean in years. Booking opened quietly through community partners. No fanfare. I stood on the terrace that afternoon as workers finished the final touches. The ocean rolled in steady waves below. The view, once a private luxury, was now shared with people who had earned it through years of quiet service. It felt like balance restored. Back at the desk, updates filtered in. Logan spent most of the day in the new room, door closed, phone calls muffled. Alexis left once for the lobby, pacing near the elevators, but she didn't approach me. Claire sat on the balcony for hours, staring out at the parking lot view. Benjamin checked out early the next morning. Without notice, said he had urgent matters in Atlanta. His card was already deactivated. He paid cash for the night and left. The resort operated normally otherwise. Housekeeping serviced rooms. Guests enjoyed the pool. The bar served cocktails. But the undercurrent had changed. No more deferred repairs. Contractors arrived for roof inspections the next week. Budgets realigned to actual needs. I returned to my temporary office overlooking the harbor. The lights of distant ships moved slowly across the dark water. I thought about the promises I had made decades ago to build something enduring, to leave a legacy that outlasted me. It wasn't about reclaiming power for its own sake. It was about ensuring the place stood for something more than appearances. They had paid for the week. They would pay for the next if they stayed. And they were beginning to understand that the privileges they had taken for granted were never truly theirs. Time passed faster than I expected 2 months later. The first call came from a former colleague at the bank. Logan had tried to refinance his mortgage. Denied. The credit freeze from the ongoing FBI review had flagged his accounts. Temporary hold, they said, pending investigation. He sold the Kiowa house 2 weeks later, listed at a loss, closed in 30 days. The proceeds went straight to legal fees and a partial repayment to the resort reserves. He moved into a rented 2-bedroom in Mount Pleasant. No ocean view, no pool. Alexis followed suit. Her Atlanta condo was put on the market. She and Claire found a small apartment in North Charleston, ground floor, shared laundry rent due on the 1st. Claire took a part-time job at a local bookstore to help cover bills. Alexis stopped posting photos. The Instagram account went quiet. Benjamin disappeared from the radar. Last I heard, he was staying with distant relatives in Savannah, avoiding calls from creditors. His name appeared in a few legal notices, subpoenas for records. The emails started arriving in the 3rd week, first from Claire. A long letter, handwritten, scanned, and attached. She wrote about the silence in their new place, how she regretted not speaking up during that private meeting years ago. I was afraid to challenge Logan. I thought it would break the family. Instead, I let it happen. I'm sorry, Joshua. Truly. Tears stained the paper in spots. I read it once, then filed it away. No reply. Logan's email came next. Short. Direct. Dad. I was wrong. Greed blinded me. I thought the business was mine to shape, but I forgot who built it. I'm paying for it now. If you'll ever listen, I'd like to talk. No excuses. Just acknowledgement. I read it twice. Still no response. Alexis sent a voice note. Her voice cracked in places. I stayed quiet because I didn't want conflict. I see now that silence was worse. Claire and I are struggling, but we deserve it. I miss the way things were before everything got twisted. Please, Dad, just one conversation. I listened in the quiet of my apartment, then deleted it. I didn't ignore them out of anger. I ignored them because words at that point felt hollow. They had chosen their path when the ledgers were still hidden. Now the path had narrowed, and they were walking it alone. I drove to the resort every few days. The Brown family legacy wing had filled quickly. The retired sergeant and his wife arrived first, both in their 80s, hands clasped as they stepped onto the terrace. They spent mornings watching the waves, afternoons reading in the recliners. The 2 widows from the senior center came next. One knitted on the balcony, the other shared stories with staff. Laughter drifted down the halls, quiet, genuine, nothing forced. I spoke with the sergeant one afternoon. He shook my hand firmly. Never thought I'd see the ocean like this again. Thank you, sir. I told him it was the least the place could do. He didn't know the history. He didn't need to. The resort itself had stabilized. Maintenance completed on schedule. Occupancy steady. No more deferred costs eating into reserves. The wing became a small but steady program community. Partners sent referrals. Volunteers helped with activities. A veteran support group met weekly in the former lounge. I walked the grounds alone, sometimes passing the spot where the presidential plunge pool used to be. Now it was a simple seating area, with benches and shade trees. The view remained the same, endless water, endless sky, but the people enjoying it had changed. One evening, I sat on a bench there, watching the sun dip low. A veteran from the wing joined me uninvited. He carried 2 coffees, handed me one. Mind company. We talked about nothing important, weather fishing spots, old cars. He didn't ask about my life. I didn't offer. When he left, he said, "This place saved my week, maybe more." I stayed until dark. The lights came on along the paths. The resort hummed quietly. Families at dinner, couples, strolling seniors sharing stories. I thought about the messages waiting on my phone. The apologies, the pleas. They were sincere now, perhaps. but sincerity after the fall felt different from sincerity before it. I stood up and walked back to the office. The emails stayed unread after the first time. The voice note stayed deleted. The letters stayed filed. Some bridges burned slowly. Others burned clean. This one had burned, and the ashes were settling. I locked the door behind me and drove home under the stars. Looking out over Charleston Harbor from my new office, I knew this was the real ending. The last message from Logan arrived 3 days ago. A simple text. Dad, we're moving again. Claire found a job in Greenville. I don't know what else to say except I'm sorry. I read it on the screen, then blocked the number. Alexis's email followed the next morning's subject line. One last try. I opened it, scanned the words, and blocked her address. Claire's voice note went unheard. Benjamin never reached out again. I didn't do it out of bitterness. I did it because some doors once closed stay closed for a reason. They had chosen distance when it suited them. Now I chose it when it protected what remained. The resort completed its transition quietly. Charleston Harbor Inns became Charleston Community Haven. The sign at the entrance changed overnight, simple letters, no fanfare. The Brown family legacy wing expanded to 2 more suites. Referrals came steadily. A Vietnam veteran with mobility issues, a retired teacher living on fixed income, a couple in their 90s who had never vacationed by the sea. They arrived with small suitcases and wide smiles. Staff learned their stories over coffee in the lounge. Laughter echoed in places that once knew only polite murmurs. I visited often, not as owner, but as observer. One morning, I sat with the sergeant again. He told me about Normandy beaches, about letters home he never sent. His wife held his hand the entire time. Later, a widow from the senior center thanked me for the quiet room where she could read without interruption. This place gives us dignity, she said. Not charity. Dignity. I nodded. Dignity was what I had tried to preserve all along. The books balanced cleanly now. No hidden drains, no inflated appearances. Maintenance happened on schedule. Revenue supported the community program, first profits second. The Haven wasn't a luxury brand anymore. It was a place of real value. I stood on the terrace of the wing one evening as the sun set over the harbor. Ships moved in the distance, lights flickering like distant stars. The air carried salt and possibility. A veteran walked by with his cane, nodded in passing. A family of 3 generations laughed nearby. Grandparents, parents, a small child chasing waves on the sand below. I thought about the years I spent building this place, the nights alone after my wife's death, the decisions made in silence so my children could have more than I did. I thought about the moment Logan handed me the keys to management, the pride I felt then, and the moment he texted me to stay away. They had lost houses, jobs, illusions of control. They had lost the easy life they built on borrowed foundations. But loss teaches when words fail. I hoped theirs would. I felt no hatred, no triumph, just clarity. Hieo Thao isn't blind obedience. It's mutual respect, acknowledging the hands that held you up, the sacrifices made in quiet. Greed erodes families faster than storms erode coastlines. Integrity outlasts money and status. When family turns away, sometimes the kindest act is to let them face the consequences alone, not as punishment, but as the only way some lessons arrive. I walked back through the lobby. The chandelier still hung above, catching the last light. Guests moved through the space, some in wheelchairs, some with walkers, some simply holding hands. No one noticed me. I didn't need them to. I locked the office door and left the keys on the desk. The Haven would run itself now. Community partners managed the wing. Staff handled operations. I was done managing. I drove home under a clear sky. The city lights faded in the rearview mirror. Charleston Harbor receded behind me. Some endings come with noise. Others come quietly like a tide pulling back. This one was quiet, and it was complete.